Hi again. Um, we need to be perfected in love. Paul told us that the greatest of all things is love. Every gift, every spiritual gift that man craves from God, that Christians want God to give them, every one of them will fall away because when we are resurrected, there will be no need of them. We will not be an earthly being then. We'll be a resurrected being. So if we don't have love, all of those things are meaningless. God's love needs to be perfected in this. One of my favorite books in the New Testament is 1 John. And the reason is because John goes into a great length of a spiritual discourse of God's love and the perfection of God's love in our hearts. He basically tells us that God is love, and every Christian believes that. Every non-Christian believes that. You know, I walk around and people think, oh, since God is love, he's not going to hurt me because he loves me. I'm his son or his daughter. Well, the Bible doesn't say everyone in his creation is his son or daughter. Those who trust on Christ are his children. Not just the human Jesus, but the fullness of who Christ was in flesh, in spirit, and in nature. The nature is God, the spirit is the Holy Spirit, the flesh is man, the Son of Man. That is the Trinity. It was all full and completed in Jesus. That's what we need to trust in. Why? Because he tells us that we will walk exactly the way he walked on this earth. If he is perfected in our hearts, if God's love is perfected. Now that's a pretty bold saying. So many of us in the Christian community won't even compare ourselves to the apostles. We think they are so great. We have them on some kind of pedestal. The apostles would be appalled. They would rip their clothes like Paul and Barnabas did when the Greeks were going to make a sacrifice to them, thinking that they were Zeus and Hermes. The apostles would be appalled and tell us, no, we're just like you. We're worse than you. Set your mind on Christ and be like him. Now, when Paul told his people, and I can't remember what letter it was, but when he said, I pray that you be like me, he's talking about like Christ in him. He's telling them to be like Christ because Christ is in him. He's dead. God's love perfected in us is when Christ is perfected in our hearts, and we will walk just as he walked. If we sin, we're not perfected yet, and that's okay. That doesn't mean we're going to hell. That means we still have more walk to do, more learning to do. The Holy Spirit is who teaches us, not man. And 1 John also tells us that if you are living in the Spirit, you do not need to be taught by man. The Spirit will teach you what you need to know. If you stumble, you fall, Christ is your advocate, and the Holy Spirit will correct you, and the Holy Spirit will change your heart and continue to cleanse you until eventually you get perfected in the Spirit and you walk just as Christ walked. And when you get to that point, you will not sin. And that's from God's perspective, not from man's. Man will find all kinds of sin in you. Your church leaders, your congregation, your family, friends, the secular world, they'll all find all kinds of faults in you and say, you think you're perfect, but you're not. And God will look down and say, yes, you are. You have the perfection of my Son in you. You have the perfection of me in you through Christ. You are blameless in my sight. I don't care what anyone thinks of me. They crucified Christ because he was a blasphemer. But Christ was perfected. He was perfected from conception, and that's how God saw him, and that is what's important. Until next time, God bless.